Right. So good morning, everyone. We were sort of chatting there in terms of the aspect of NEBOSH and the some ideas of what happened with one of those uh Zoom accounts now, right? So just gonna bear that in mind. I'm seeing it on the recording. I did upload the video last week to your Google Classroom. I sent you the link. I didn't send an individual, like the individual link. I sent the class code, and everybody could just put in the code into Google Classroom and you can review the video. Now, today's content, so just as we get into it, um, if anyone can just share, I'll just ask two quick questions because we covered detailed orientation last week. It's on your Google Classroom, right? And I'm sure you all took notes. If not, you can go through it and take some notes again on it, right? So I guess just to start with, we could start from anybody could say what does NEBOSH stand for? What does the letters stand for?
Hi,
Anyone?
morning.
Morning, morning.
Yeah. National Examination Board, Occupational Health, Safety and Health.
Okay, right. So it's the National Examination Board in Occupational Safety and Health. Anybody else? Where are they located?
Good morning. They're located in Leicestershire.
Very good, Amrish. Very good. I was just looking at, I just came in, I was looking at, well, I do look at, I was looking at, sorry, I changed the thing. I was looking at TikTok just now, there's anybody else. I saw, they have like a protest going on or something in the UK. Well, I suppose when I say the UK, uh, I suppose it would be, that part of Leicester anyway, right? But anyway, I don't know if you all see, but I'm not too sure what the protest is about. I'm seeing something says free Tommy, but I don't know who Tommy is. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I'll look up that. But anyway, England is very cool right now. I was there in December. This week I saw, they have these nice, like different creators, and I had somebody just walking through London. I was looking at one of that this week, and it was wet and it was cold. It looked wet. It looked cooler than December. It looked gloomy. And then last week I had a meeting with a NEBOSH rep from Leicester, and she was telling me that we had snow, but it didn't snow when I was there in London. And I think Leicester, if you want to look at the map right now, there's a reason for this. But let me just finish and then I'll tell you. There are many reasons for it, right? But so Leicester is sort of north then. It's north of England. And like the more north you go, it's gonna be colder, right? But she was saying this is a new Bosch. She was saying that it had snow there. And then I have a UK student in one of my classes, not this one. He's in another course, process safety, Lorenzo. And I saw him last week in the live, and he in the room was dressed up, like with a big coat. And I was like, Lorenzo, like, and then I realized, and it is actually kind of true. I have been seeing it. I mean, I haven't been to the traditional parts of England. I have been, but not to the countryside. Like certain places don't have heating. Like I don't even know what heating is. If you go to Canada and America, a heating unit is like an AC unit, but it's on the ground. But like apparently some places don't have heating. So even if you imagine in a room, because like when you're in a room, the temperature is supposed to be different now, right? But when you're in a room and it's still 2 degrees. So that's how we was last week in class. And we all saw him in this big coat, and I was like, it had to be that the room didn't have heating. Anyway, so the moral of this story is just to give you an idea visually, because you see Caribbean people, like you all think now, like I have your certificate. And I was telling you that last week, right? The idea of this is that you have to understand that there is, if you want to call it a third party. In fact, I am the third party. NEBOSH really is the real party, the first party, right? And you are really a student of NEBOSH. You're not really a student of SSI. We are the third party, right? And you have to keep that in mind that your certificate and your exam is coming from there and it's going back there. It's not coming to the office here. And it's certainly not coming from here. I told you that last week. This is not Costa to the University of the West Indies. This is just, we are what we call a course provider. But when you get that UK cert in your hand, then so, you know, keep in mind that that's where your paper is going. And that's why I share the story so that you start to understand that this is a real place, right? Leicester, Nibosh, because if you have never traveled and if you have, you should understand that this is a real place. And that's what makes it globally recognized. It's not being printed in UE, it's not being printed in COSTAT. And for those of us in Guyana here, it's not being printed at the New Guyana School or School of Nations. It's really coming from England. And it's good because a lot of people have it. We have classes that have 90% passes, 100% passes. Different sittings are different anyway, right? But I share those things so that you understand that that is where it's going. The other reason is that a lot of my students travel. Look, yesterday, a couple of my degree students, I was looking for this book last week, right? It's just too much to share, but a couple of students completed a degree, which is a level 6 program. Now, the graduation for that is in the UK. So sometimes by me influencing the stories now, like the girl yesterday, Carla, I have a picture on my phone, I'm gonna share, right? So the girl yesterday, she was saying, she wants to go to the graduation in the UK. So a lot of, and that has not, remember, I've been doing this long enough. I have students who have completed. I've had students like when they take vacation, they go to the UK, and believe it or not, one of their highlights of their trip is actually visiting Leicester, visited Nibosh, right? And so I'll just show it quickly. I won't show you all of it, but you should be able to make out her name on it anyway. So she completed there's a picture I took. She completed the Nibosh diploma yesterday. Well, not yesterday, the cert came now, right? So she came for it, and she's one of many, right? And so people sometimes are able to be convinced that they want to visit London a bit, or maybe you want to head up to your graduation a bit, right? Also for work, right? Remember, this is the certificate that is globally recognized, meaning that you could actually get work in England with that. All you have to do, you don't have to believe me, just go on Google and put in UK HSE jobs. Of course, you may have to get a sponsor. There are some, but some Caribbean people have dual citizenship. Some people have, relationships. And maybe that's where you're going to end up, right? I have students in the UK, as I told you, Lorenzo. That's just one. I have many others, right? I have a guy called Troydell. He's up in Northern Ireland. I have students in Dubai, Qatar, right? This is the same cert you could go to if you want to go to Canada, right? You want to go to, well, India, wherever you want to go, this is the cert, right? That is globally recognized. And, it stands up then, right? Our CXCs, those of us in the region here, our CXCs are good. But then there are some countries like England, and they more favor the GCE, which is where we got our CXC from, right? But if you do something like NIBOSH, then you are good everywhere. You are good in Trinidad, you are good in Guyana, you are good in Canada, you are good in the UK, of course, you are good in the Middle East, if that's where you want to end up. A lot of companies are there, people make lots of monies, $100,000 a month plus, right? And this is it, right? So all you have to do to pass is to do a good case study, right? So ladies and gents, with that said, let me kind of start. Hopefully the little motivation could motivate you a bit. Probably get up on whenever you get some time after class. Check out some videos on the UK, NIBOSH, check it out, on TikTok, whatever you want to do. Start to dream a bit, because once you have this, you know how happy these people were. I know this girl, I'll tell you a story of her, but not today, right? And she finished that course in 18 months. The level 6 is 18 months after the certificate program. And she came a long way. Every one of them today, the manager in Desalcott, Atlantic, OSHA, Proman, every one of them came a long way, right? CSP, I could tell you all of them by name. Every one of them didn't just fall like Mr. Bean. Everyone, Mr. Bean, right? If you remember the comedy, right? Every one of them started and every one of them finished, but every one of them have a story, and you have a story as well. So from this class, if it's your interest, some of you here would end up, all my students end up in companies. Look, this week, right? I got a call from somebody at SEAX. When I followed up on it, was a HSE manager. When I followed up on it, was actually one of my students who is now the safety there. And they're looking for training, and they would have recommended me. But when the manager called the guy name, right? in my mind, I pitied him as a student. I remember seeing him. He wasn't even working. He was a bag on his back. That's how I remember him. And of course, that was 10 years ago. So, it's not like that anymore. So your story will be your story. And of course, like I have Charles and Henry Sabala here. They know some of my students like Jeffrey and what's the other guy name? The one with the plats again, what's his name again?
Night Bola.
Nigel Bula. You know Nigel is a sit right here.
Yeah.
Nigel, where I'm sitting now, right? Back then when I had that class, what happened? We had some lessons. Yes, right? Every class is different, right? And that class asked me for some lessons. So it had about 6 of them after the lessons, and they was willing to pay for it, right? So the office, the way it looks now, because we have another venue, the office wasn't the sole place then. The office was just like a side. So we put some benches here. And Nigel, where I'm sitting here, this is where Nigel is to sit, Nigel Bola as a student, right? So look where he is at now, and of course we have so many other students out there that are in the HSC field, and you would be that person too. You would be that person to come here to come, right? All right, I'm gonna change the script here. Let's get into the PowerPoint. You all should have it. If by chance, because I know you all don't have your books, but maybe if anybody have a book, you'll see it's the same thing, right? We didn't just the PowerPoint is the book, right? When you get your book, hopefully in a week time, you would see it's the same thing, right? That's where we got the information from. Like we didn't get it anywhere else. We only got it from the syllabus, but the book closely reflects the syllabus, right? And because it's a presentation, you wouldn't want me to come and open a book here and read, because if that's the case, then you could have done that by yourself. What you want is what is called tertiary education, and it's normally done with a presentation, right? So these PowerPoints are very good. What I will do, though, I would slow down where it has past paper. Now, for the first class, it doesn't have much past papers, right? So we'll have to kind of get a good hour under our belt before we could look at a past paper, right? So the objective of this session to facilitate meaning towards the following themes: the moral expectation of good standards of health and safety. We should reach that just now, but by 10 o'clock. The financial cost of incidents, insured and uninsured costs. Now, we might not get to that. The reason is what I did, and not just me, that's how the book did it, right? What they did, instead of getting into the moral first, they went through some definitions, right? So the book did health, safety, welfare. I did the same thing, but I kind of added some more. I added some definitions there because I was thinking, as this is your first safety course, we shouldn't just start then and not tell you what a hazard is, right? So I put just 2 more definitions here: hazards and risk, and then I went into moral. Now, these definitions are in the course, but in element 3. As today's your first class, and I thought it wise to maybe just cover, like 5 or 6 basic definitions before. Now, in these, it looks like 5, right? And it looks as if we'll finish in 5 minutes time, but we wouldn't, because what I'll do with these in particular, I would slow down and mention some questions here on this particular slide or on this particular concept, right? The first ones are easy to write, so let's get to the first ones of them. So we have health, the protection of our bodies, we can say our bodies, and the mind of people from illness resulting from the materials, processes, or procedures used in the workplace. So if you think about it, health is, when they say health and safety, safety is the next slide. Let me read the next slide first, right? The protection of people from physical injury, the absence of unacceptable risk. Safety is concerned with the physical and mental well-being of the individual at the place of work. So keep that in mind, watch it again. Health, protection of the body and the mind. Safety, physical and mental. So if you take a closer look at it, you sort of realize like it's the same thing. Health is concerned with protecting your body and your mind. I'll explain what that means in a bit, right? And safety is protecting you physically and mentally, your mental well-being, right? So we could understand the first one body and physical by thinking about like what does PPE do for you? Like what does a hard hat protect on you? What does a hard hat protect? Anyone?
Your head.
Right. So that's physical. What about, I guess, safety glasses, safety goggles, which is a bit different. Glasses and goggles are different. What does the safety glasses and the safety goggles protect?
Yeah,
Okay, very good, right? So that piece is easy to understand that health, and you notice they say health and safety. So if you wonder, why do those two words always go together? Like Batman and Robin, right? Tom and Jerry. Why does health and safety always go together? Why is the position called health and safety officer? Because in a way, they are both concerned with the same thing, is protecting your physical body, right? Your eyes, your head, the coverall, your skin, as well as, same as safety protected, your physical being. Um, and so because there's some similarities in the meaning, like that has transferred into the workplace then. So the vacancy, the job position here is called health and safety advisor, health and safety officer, right? Now, what do we mean with the mind? If you think about it a bit, like the PPE cannot protect your mind, and the PPE might not protect your well-being. Maybe some of them could. A good acoustic, set of headphones could be used to listen to some nice meditative sort of music, and that could protect your mind a bit. But it's not that they're talking about, right? It's not that sort of protection. So how does health and safety, how does a health and safety person protect your mind? Well, we talk about now things like working hours. We talk about things like the person being fatigued or stressed. A good health and safety person, officer, advisor, manager would ensure then that their workers are not overworked, right? They would ensure things like proper communication. They would ensure things like the worker is actually spoken to or communicated with, or at least hopefully. They would ensure things like ergonomics, like the person has a good working environment. Those things are like something mental, right? Like think about coming to your place of work and then, it's messy, it's in a disorder, there is no refreshments, the kitchen is in a mess, right? Like all of those then, like it have that aspect of safety, like where there is the physical aspect of lighting, temperature, ventilation, welfare. And those things could go good for you if during the course of the day, you can take a break and get a cup of coffee. You can take a break and get down to the lunchroom and maybe just be by yourself for that time then, right? So safety also includes that aspect of it, that the workers are not overworked, right? That they are not fatigued, they are not stressed out, right? Working hours then is kept to 8 hours. And if you're working on a shift, it's kept to 12 hours with sufficient rest. So there is the aspect then of health and safety, taking care of your body, but there's also the aspect of taking care of your mind. What about things like your salary, right? What about things like being paid on time, right? And so things like the NEBOSH qualification, what we always tell our students is that um, this is not the other courses then. We mentioned them last week. We mentioned the other places last week, right? When you get your NEBOSH, you can get a good job. I've mentioned some of that to you before, right? So mentally, you have that confidence then, like you could step out. You could step out. You think, these persons who I showed you one here, right? The coordinator next to me is one as well, that you could step out, right? And you are marketable then, right? Those things go well for you. You sleep better at night. You mightn't sleep well now because you're studying now and you have things to do, right? When you're doing your project, you probably put in the hours. When you're doing the exam, we said it's a 24-hour exam. It may take you as much hours. It may take you about 20 hours, right? We talked about last week how to find the answer. So you may lose that sleep now, but then you would be assured, hey, you could go to Canada. Talking from experience here, up to, have a guy in the class here. Well, he's not in this class, right? but his father, his parent dad had called to do NIBOSH and they said, would this certificate be accepted in Canada? And I said, I cannot, I know the answer. But I said, I'm not going to tell you the answer. I told him, go and call wherever you are going. Make contact with them and ask them, right? If they will take the certificate. He came back one time, he said, yes. He said, the people said it would be an asset. He said, if he get it, they will take his son to do a program in that, in that place, I think, with some engineering program, right? So, that sort of confidence then goes better for you, right? I said in terms of studying, and you study NIBOSH, but just to let you know too, just get back to the workplace then, that health and safety is about protecting you physically, but if you are well taken care of, proper facilities, what's your next one? Welfare facilities, your working hours are, within your specification, you have agreed it, if it's 8 hours or 12 hours, you are treated with respect, right? Like basic health and safety, welfare needs and drinking water, heat and light, and these things are taken care of. They go well for you mentally. So do you understand now that health and safety kind of goes together, which is why we kind of see it in that same sentence then. Ideally though, there is, there is medical, like nursing health, but we talk about occupational health and occupational safety sort of goes together because they sort of both deal with protecting the body and the mind, right? Just the middle definition here, the absence of unacceptable risk. That's a good way to think about risk. This one calls for some thought. It doesn't call for some exam. It's not an exam question, but if you think about it, what they say is that if you accept risk, to you it is safe. Not an exam question, I'm just telling you how it is. If you accept risk, to you it is perceived to be safe, unless if something changes that, right? So think about maybe going out for an evening. Different countries are different. Those of us in Guyana, it may be safer. Trinidad, fairly safe, not all that safe. But once you accept the risk, then you say, okay, I'm going out to X, Y, and Z. And, once you accept the risk, like your parents, and those of us who are parents, right? Or would have had our parents say to us, be careful, come back by some time. I can't say the time. But to you, you don't see that. You accept the risk. You thinking it's safe. So in a way, though, safety, even occupational safety, has a matter of acceptance with it, right? Like once somebody accepts the risk, to them it is seen to be safe. However, though, what you'll see in a bit, what you'll see in the last, the definition I have, right? There is like there's like a range then. Like in occupational safety, there's a range where you could calculate it and it is seen to be safe. So most companies, if you ask, okay, like, do most companies have a hazard? Of course. Do they have risk? Of course. Is the risk zero? It never is zero. But they accept certain levels of risk, like the lower levels of risk, and you'll see that in a bit, right? So bear that in mind. I don't know. I mean, we haven't reached that slide as yet. But think about what I just told you there, right? If you want, you could write that down. Like there is no such thing as zero risk. You can write it down for yourself, right? That's not the exam. I mean, you're not here, you're here to learn at the same time. But when you're out there, you're a competent person, right? It's not only about passing an exam and getting 45 and over. It's about learning as well, right? So there's no such thing as zero risk. No company can say we have zero risk. In fact, zero risk does not exist in this life, right? It maybe exists, but it doesn't exist in this life, right? Zero risk only exists if you probably pass away. So once you're living, it have risk, right? Those of us in Trinidad would understand that, and maybe Guyana, because we face things like, vector-borne diseases here, crime, right? And of course around the world as well. But just last year, folks, a mosquito could have bitten you and you could not have been here today. How many people have known people that passed away with dengue, right? So you must know somebody because this is how rampant it was. So life is not without risk, right? So there's no such thing as zero risk. But there are things you can do then. Like if we go back to that, to that sort of dengue example, like if you kept your surrounding clean, that's probably dependent on your neighbor. If your neighbor has like a clean lot as well, well, you could have said to yourself, I did all that I could do, so there's nothing else you cannot do. Again, of course, in countries like Guyana, the government, when I was across there, they were doing lots of spraying programs, right? They were spraying, a lot. Of course, Trinidad here, the government perspective was, this is not my words, eh? In fact, no, let me not say it, right? Let me not say the words, but you all could check it up on YouTube, right? But the government perspective here was, they're not going to spray, right? So there's so much a government could do, and I guess I think they could have done more here locally because it was kind of rampant, last year, August, September, October there, right? But the point of that story is that as a safety tuner, you could do all you could do in a company, but there's still an element of surprise. There's still an element of God. There's still an element that, life is not without risk then, right? So the point is, in a company, the lower risk levels, they normally accept that. I'll show you what that means in a bit. And the lower risk levels are said to be like tolerable. Normally high risk levels companies don't accept, right? But once they accept the lower levels, to them then it's not seen to be perfect. And in this life, it cannot be perfect in the workplace, right? At least in that safety aspect then. But it could be one that the risk is managed and that is said to be acceptable, right? We're coming back to that concept in a bit, right? What is an accident? An accident is any unplanned event that results in injury or ill health of people, or damage or loss to property, plant material, or the environment, or a loss of a business opportunity. Again, thank God, like I said, the exam is not memory-based. You don't have to remember none of this. You just have to understand. And if you think about it, an accident is always unplanned. Like no, sane person would think about getting up and having an accident. Mentally then, like you wouldn't get up and say, okay, I'm going to lose my arm today, or I'm going to crash my car today. If you're mentally there, right? You're mentally sound, of course, that has to do with you, of course, information that you feed into your senses and stuff, right? So things like making sure that you have a sound mind then, right? If you have a sound mind, no person will think about causing harm then, right? So it's an unplanned event. All accidents are unplanned, and the outcome of them, they are never good, right? You have injury, ill health of people, damage or loss to property, plant material, or the environment, right? What is an incident? This one, or a near miss. So this is an incident, or any incident that could have resulted in an accident. Knowledge of near misses is very important, as research has shown that approximately for every 10 near miss at a particular location in the workplace, a minor accident will occur. So a near miss, right, is like an accident, but it didn't happen, right? So it could have resulted in an accident, but it didn't happen, right? So it's like maybe you slipped, but you didn't fall. So that's a near miss. Maybe you saw a car coming at you, God forbid, and you were quick, with your maneuvers, and you're able to avoid an accident. If you had called your loved one just after that, and you're telling him or her, the story, you would have said, babes, I almost made an accident. You wouldn't say, I made an accident. You would have said, I almost made an accident this morning. A car came out from nowhere, as you see in the Caribbean. Of course, the car comes up from somewhere, but we say it comes out from nowhere. And I was able to avoid it. And similarly, in the workplace, if maybe a scaffolding fell, right? Some pipe fell and it fell at your feet, but it didn't hit you. Maybe a split second again, it would have. When you call your parents, when you call your loved one, right? Or you call your family member and you are telling them, you would have said, I almost made an accident. I almost died today. And that is what a near miss is, right? It is an incident that could have resulted in an accident, Now, the companies, those of us who work, and if you're not working, I'll tell you this. Again, this is not too much of an exam question, but it's a big company issue where the companies, they more value the near miss information, right? So you have, let me just put this one here for you if you're writing anything. This is just for you, right? So the companies more value the near miss data, right? Than the accident data, right? At least in a positive sense then. It's not as if they're not going to record the accident data, as you all know they record that as well. But they more value then, like a lot of companies, I'll tell you what I mean by value just now. Let me just finish up this, right? So accidents, I'm gonna put 0 here, right? But near misses, let me put 30. So why is that information valuable for a company? And when I say valuable, they actually give things for it, right? There are companies that give rewards, yes. Most companies in Trinidad and Tobago, there is a scheme, there is a good scheme, right? Not a bad scheme. There's a good scheme in Trinidad and Tobago called STOW, STOW. We'll talk about that in chapter 2. But they give rewards then, like for the department that reports the most amount of near misses. They give the rewards, by the way, could be money, right? They give money, they give movie tickets, they give vouchers, right? They give recognition plaques, right? To the person, and this is because it's kind of driven by a scheme, right? Sorry, this is supposed to be recognition. I'm gonna put so REC, right? Instead of REG, right? So recognition plaques, awards, right? And so there's a value. So that's what I want to tell you. It's not just, let me say it's a value, it's not just saying it's a value. They actually do give money. Massey, Atlantic, they give, things like some companies actually used to give electronic items, bakery vouchers, movie town tickets. I think I mentioned that one already, right? So there's a value reported near misses.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The last shutdown, the Turnaround and PCS they actually gave away 255-inch Samsung TV and stuff.
Right, very good, good. Right. So, but the question is why? Why is there an emphasis on gathering near miss data? Near miss data is like you slipped but you didn't fall, but they want you to report it still. Near miss data is like a pipe fell from a scaffold, but it didn't hit anybody, but they wanted to report it still. Near miss data is like maybe a gas, had a gas leak happen. Nobody was around when you came in the morning or the night shift saw it and they was able to kind of turn off a secondary valve. But nobody was injured and there was no environmental consequence. But why is there an emphasis on that sort of data? It's actually on the slide, but why you think? Why you think there's a greater emphasis on getting that data from the fact that you slip in the car park than somebody really slipping and falling in the car park?
Well, sir, I will think it's because near misses are more likely to happen more regularly than accidents. So with that data, you'll be able to identify the hazards that it have lying around and be able to put things in place to make sure that accidents don't ultimately happen when they do.
Very good, right? That is totally correct, Jabari, right? So that's why they do it. You see, it's better to stop it here than to kind of, fix it here, because by this time somebody has fallen. By this time there is a gas leak and, so much of people got, intoxicated. By the accident time, the pipe did fall and hit the worker. Let's just assume that he's still alive, but maybe badly hurt, right? So by this time, it's kind of too late. And yes, they record it, and yes, they investigate it, and they do put corrective actions in place. But this time is better. You understand? So Jabari said it best. At this time, you don't have the pain then. You don't have the hurt. You don't have the loss. It could have happened. And then that data is very valuable. Now, in respect to exam, remember, tell you, this course prepares you for work, right? But there have not really been any questions on that. But this is how it is in the workplace. Like you heard Charles and them mention how it is. I told you about it too. When you get out there, you'll see, right? There are companies too that actually terminate companies if you have like a high amount of near misses and stuff, like companies like Atlantic, companies that have contractors working for them now, right? If you have a high amount of these things happening, they could actually take away your contract, right? If you all know, I mean, and this is a real thing. There was one that happened last year, which is Chinpaya. Chinpaya lost, Charles and them saying, And that was 100 and something workers that went, more than probably 100 workers went home because of things that had nothing really to do with every worker. Imagine you being sent home because another worker, something happened with him. But then some companies treat it like that now. ProMan treat it in a way that they don't want a high amount of incidents. So when I say serious, I mean serious as sending a whole batch of tender. You won that tender. The company won that tender, right? But now the contract is terminated. Charles, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, just to shed a light, what happened is I believe it was a block or a plank had fallen on the guy, and what they had done is they forgot to report it. And by not reporting it, that leave a big problem.
Yeah, right. So, like I said, I mean, so you understand, I'm glad that we have that exam and then the reality based it as well then, right? So that's the reality. Now, Guyana, I have a couple of persons here. I do work for them, as you all know. I do work for companies across there as well. And I'm not, I mean, I know the ones that I work for are very strict with safety. That's Gisby, right? But then you may find like the smaller companies might not take it that seriously. Safety in Guyana is a developing field because of the oil and gas, Exxon, and those companies are pushing the safety. But I think it's gonna take a good 10, 20 years before like the culture in safety changes in Guyana. But Exxon is pushing it, right? Exxon making sure everybody do what they have to do. And that's kind of driving the safety initiative in Guyana. Folks, remember, your NEBOSH certificate is good in Guyana. My Guyanese students, folks, remember, your NEBOSH certificate is good in Trinidad. You all could come and work in Trinidad, and we can go and work across there. Likewise, you could work in, I think there's some work up, I think, at St. Lucia as well. I have students there. I know St. Kitts, Barbados has a bit of oil and gas as well. It's good anywhere in the world, right? Of course, like I said, there is some kind of collaboration with Guyana and Trinidad in terms of oil and gas. For now, right? For now, I think in the years to come, because we have been there 5 years. I've been training as the first person training Guyanese with NEBOSH. I've been there going in 5 years now, and we have trained a lot of persons. How I said we have people in Trinidad working in different companies, I can say the same for Guyana as well, right? I can say I could call companies and I'd have students that came through our school here that they are working in safety today, haven't done their NEBOSH qualification, right? All right. Thanks for the answer there, Jabari. This is well said. I'm moving on with this one, right? So the next one here is what is a dangerous occurrence? So a dangerous occurrence, this is a near miss that could have led to serious injury or loss of life. Dangerous occurrences are always reportable to the enforcing authorities, which is OSHA in the region here. But as you're doing this course, maybe I could tell you it now. Now, it's not today's lesson. We wouldn't reach it now, but I could tell you it now. In the UK, where your certificate is going, well, no, sorry, not your certificate, but where your exam paper is going, to NEBOSH, and where your certificate is coming from, they don't say OSHA across there. So I wanted to kind of keep that in mind. So when I teach a course, I would relate it to OSHA in Trinidad, right? We have two branches, and then of course in Guyana, OSHA is under the Ministry of Labor, which is on the street running horizontal to Albert Street. Ministry of Labor in Guyana is on the right-hand side there, right? So we would say OSHA in Trinidad and we would say OSHA in Guyana, but in the UK, they don't say OSHA. So the enforcing authority, which is their OSHA. So I'll take a note of it here. I'll put, it's called the HSE. But you may wonder, but we say HSE too. But the thing is, it means something different for them. So it isn't health, safety, and environment. So maybe you could take down the meaning, right? So the meaning is health, of course, and safety, but the E is executive, and that's their OSHA. So I put a slash here in the UK. In other words, then when you are writing up your project, folks in Guyana, Celine, right? When you're writing up your project, and those of us in Trinidad, right? Don't say OSHA. So I'm going to put an X next to this OSHA here. Because where your paper is going, they don't say OSHA, they say Health and Safety Executive. EXE, if you want to spell it, EXE, CUTIVE, Health and Safety Executive, EXECUTIVE. Make sure and write it down, right? So just remember whenever, no, I would, because remember we are from here, we didn't fall from the sky, I told you, right? So every time in this course, they say enforcing authority, I will say HSE or OSHA in the region, right? HSE or OSHA in the region, so that you understand what the HSE is. The HSE is their OSHA, but they don't say OSHA in the UK. They say Health and Safety Executive. Europe, if you ever get to that far, but you could with your NEBOSH certificate, Europe. I had a student yesterday. Today's Friday, right? A guy came here yesterday. I just call his first name, right? Lewis. And he was telling me he was all in Antarctica and like Northern Ireland. And I found that strange because that's the first time I ever hear a Trinidadian said, so I asked him, so how did you? And then he's actually from, he said he's 5 minutes from Maracas, right? Those of us in Guyana, that's one of the most popular beaches we have here, which is north of the island. And it's like, how did you get from there to Antarctica? Because anyway, he did talk about work and his studies that led him there then, right? Like his NEBOSH studies and stuff led him there, right? So you could never tell where you'd end up, to be honest with you. I'm just saying Antarctica is not Europe, by the way. I'm just saying that, Europe, though, they say OSHA as well, right? So that's I put HSE here under UK. The UK, if you're not too sure what the UK is, I don't know if I can tell you this, but it's not an exam, and it's just for you. The UK is England. Hopefully you try to visit one time in your life, especially if you get your NEBOSH, right? It'd be nice to visit them. Don't all go to New York all the time, right? Go to the UK a bit, right? Check out London a bit, right? So England, you have Scotland, I just put in the letters, right? You have Wales, and then you have Northern Ireland. Just put NI for this one, right? Those are the countries that make up the United Kingdom. NEBOSH, of course, is located in England. They are accredited, though, with an entity from Scotland, right? Called the SQA. That's like the biggest accreditation body in the world, right? You can write it down, SQA. In fact, that will come on your certificate. It'll have your name, it'll have the NEBOSH logo, but it'll have accreditation from something called SQA. SQA is the biggest accreditation body out of the UK. If anybody is doing any courses like ACCA and those kind of things, like accounting or anything as you're familiar with, it accredited at SQA, right? No, don't get frightened. Remember, it's an easy exam, case study. The song big. Remember, it will simmer down or boil down to be a case study exam, right? I'm just trying to relate to you all a bit, right? So please remember this. I've made the point. I've seen a lot of students writing up their project. When we come to that, which is halfway in the course, they will talk about OSHA and OSHA Trinidad. No. Don't talk about OSHA Trinidad. Do not talk about OSHA Guyana. You have to talk about the UK and the UK laws, right? That's where we got ours from, by the way. The TT OSHA, we got it from the UK. The Guyana OSHA, you got it from the UK. That's not today's class, but please take a note of it, right? Do you think that Trinidadians invented the OSHA? Answer that question for me. And those of us in Guyana, do you think Guyanese invented the OSHA? Do you think that I'm not saying that they're not capable of doing it, but do you think that we invented the OSHA?
No.
No. You see, there was no need to. Like, do you think we invented the alphabet? No, we didn't. But there is the alphabet. Everybody knows the alphabet. Do you think we invented timetables, 2 by 2, 4? No, we didn't, but everybody knew or should know their timetables. At least you know 2 by 2, right? So the thing is, certain things are good then. It's kind of like a good t-shirt, a good brand like Nike, right? So if certain things are good, we just take that then, right? So we took the UK Act. We call it the TT OSHA Act 2004. Guyanese did the same thing. They took the UK Act from the written, of course, in partnership with the HSC. and they call it the Guyana Ushak 1997. Here is the trick to that question. America did the same thing. America was under the British. Canada did the same thing. Grenada, if you want to come closer to home, right? Grenada did the same thing. We all did the same thing because we were under the British, right? This part of the world, including America, was under, remember, America is part of the New World. We're all under the British, right? So when it was time then to write an Ushak, we already saw what the English had, and it sounded good. Provide PPE, safe place of work, safe access egress, safe plant and equipment. We didn't need to go up in, the north coast then, for those of us in Trinidad, and maybe in Guyana, you didn't need to probably go down to Linden by the Blackwater Lakes then and sit down and meditate and think about, what do I put in our Ushak? No, they already had it. So they just took it and they got it passed in each respective parliament. And that's what we have our Ushak today. The point of this though is that, I don't know if you're getting this, when you see the HSE Act then in the UK, what I'm trying to tell you is that you also see the one in Trinidad and in Guyana. If you learn then the duty of the employer is to provide PPE, it's the same in Trinidad, same in Guyana, same in America, same in Canada. It doesn't change. Cannot change. Because we all took it from them. 2 by 2 is always 4, no matter what country you go to. Unless they change the tables, right? But at least for now, it's the same. It doesn't matter what country that you get to, right? Just to get back to this one a bit here, folks. So this is an EMS. I don't know if it catches one. So a dangerous occurrence is an EMS, right? A dangerous occurrence is an EMS. Now, if you understand it, why I say it twice is because when you read this, then it means that nothing happened. A dangerous occurrence is an EMS, right? 1 second. Just give me a minute. Hold on. Yeah, so a dangerous occurrence is an EMS. What I was saying is that what it means is that nothing happened as well. Because it is an EMS. It could have, but it didn't, right? So when you check how they have it here, like there is a classification of near misses for serious injury, and that is what a dangerous occurrence is. Not too sure if you get it. In other words, then I'm going to try to break it down for you. You have your normal near misses, and then you have your dangerous occurrences. What's the difference? The difference is what? Anybody can say the difference between them? What's the difference between a normal near miss and a dangerous occurrence? It's on the slide.
The difference is that how a dangerous occurrence is the one, but the key is that it could result into death or a serious injury.
Very good. Excellent, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Edon. Go ahead. You have it.
Yeah, and well, the near miss is basically just a normal incident what almost turned into an accident.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Well said. So you could think of it like a near miss could just be like a normal slip and trip. Like a normal somebody slip, but it didn't, they tripped, but it did not fall, right? Now, if they had fallen, the question is if, it would not have been a death. It would have probably been like, maybe just pride, maybe does the person feel bad, or maybe there's a slight, dust off kind of thing. It might not have been a sprain. It may be, but it's something minor. But a dangerous occurrence is like if the person did fall, so you could think of this as somebody falling from a scaffold. So somebody slipped on a scaffold. Now, they did not fall, but they could have fallen, right? And if they had fallen from a scaffold, well, they would have died, right? So then that type of near miss, because the outcome is death, right? Or serious loss of life, right? It's called a dangerous occurrence. Now, I'm not too sure if companies do this classification in Trinidad. And of course, I know they don't do it in Guyana, right? But it's a theory now, so we have to cover the theory, right? As far as I know, they don't use the phrase dangerous occurrences in Trinidad, right? But it's theory, right? What I can tell you is that we don't have any exam questions on it, but it's good information nonetheless anyway, right? All right, let's get to the next two. The next two we have here is what is a hazard. So a hazard is anything with the potential to cause harm. A hazard could be a person, activity, or process, right? Once there is the potential to cause harm. The interesting thing with a hazard is that if you just look at it a bit, right? The interesting thing is that the hazard, right? Yeah. So the hazard, I'm not sure if you understand like what the word potential means. So potential means it didn't happen as yet. You could think of that as electricity. Just give me a minute again, huh? You're right. So I was thinking about yeah, electricity, right? So like an electric socket then, right? Always have the potential to cause harm, right? But it doesn't cause the harm then. So the electric socket that you're using today then, right, has a hazard of electricity, right? You understand that? It didn't cause the harm. If the harm would have been realized, if the harm had occurred, if somebody was shocked then, it wouldn't be a hazard anymore. It'd actually be an accident. Not too sure if you get it. Let me just do another one, right? So like thinking of something easy as well. So like I just do something easy, right? So somebody on a scaffold, right? I wouldn't put any guardrails on the scaffold. I'll just draw somebody here. Somebody on a scaffold. Now this person is here, working here, right? Now it doesn't mean that this person would fall, but the person could fall. And because the person could fall, we say the hazard is like fall from height. When I write this down, you just write the word electricity for me. Right? This I'll write out, I want to give you about 5, but I won't draw 5. I'll just call the next two, right? So this will be the hazard here is fall from height. Think you understand that? So we say what could happen. See, you are the safety watching that person up there, right? It does not mean that the person would fall, but there's a potential. And if there is the potential, we say it's a hazard. If the person did fall, well, then it wouldn't be a hazard anymore. The person, it would have been probably classed as a serious injury or probably death, right? So once there's a potential of a person, activity, or process to cause harm, we say it is a hazard. Think you understand that a bit? You don't have to wait for an accident then. You don't have to wait for an accident to say it's a hazard. Once there is the potential for harm, we call it a hazard, right? Let me just call 3 more for you. I wouldn't draw anything else. I'll just call them out for you so that you have an idea. And maybe if you know of some as well. But I'll just stop at 5 for now as is your first class, right? So another well-known hazard that everybody knows is noise. It has some well-known ones. Look, we actually put one in the slide before. Slips and trips is a well-known hazard. You know, there's water on the ground, there's oil on the ground. There is food on the ground. Somebody could say, look, somebody could slip and fall. Give me a chance here just now. This is supposed to be NIBOSH. What they did, right? They took off the word fall. So on a worldwide basis, the hazard is now called slips and trips. So if you hear me saying slips and trips, that's the reason why. It's not that I don't know it have falls in it, but the worldwide slang now is slips and trips. Let's put the S at the end of them for me, right? Slips and trips. Right? So they don't say fall anymore. The slang now is slips and trips, right? So I'll leave number 5 for you. Could you shout a hazard for me? Anybody? Here the thing, it can never be wrong because once there's a potential for harm, it will be classed as a hazard. So there's really no wrong answer for hazard.
Hot work or working at heights.
Okay, we have 4 from heights, but hot work is one, so I'll put that one down here, hot work. right? Anybody else thought of another one? Just to give you a chance to say
Pinch
something.
points could be one.
Say it again.
Pinch points.
Pinch points. Now that falls under a hazard called mechanical hazards, right? But so pinch point is a hazard. It's just that the category it belongs to is something called mechanical hazards, right? So
Poor
mechanical.
housekeeping. Poor
Say it again.
housekeeping.
For housekeeping, okay, yeah. That falls under something called welfare. So, like one of the things you'll pick up in this course then is that hazards have certain names there, right? The proper name for poor housekeeping is work. This is a kind of long category. Please write them down though. The category is called workplace. I guess I could probably just say welfare, right? But workplace welfare, it's actually longer than that, but I'll stop there because I'll probably tell you why in a bit, right? The thing is, they give you a list, right? It actually have a list in this course of hazards. But we haven't reached there yet now. So see all these names that coming up strange to you, all mechanical and you know, it actually have a list. And remember, you could use the list. The day for the exam, you could use the list. It's not as if you can't open and see the list. Right? So I would want to end with 8. It's a good number to end. Anybody have another hazard that you think you want to
Gas
kind of
leak.
shout out? Gas leak. That would probably go under fire and explosion. Right? So fire and explosion here, right? So well, was there another one? That's a kind of enough for the first day. Anybody have another one?
So cuts and abrasions.
Cuts and abrasions is one. I'm thinking of the category, but for now, the category is not too important, right? But I want you all to write something down for me, which is that there is a category of hazards that NEBOSH will give you. Cuts and abrasions. So now we'll work with these as hazards because it's your first class. But they need to be said in the correct way then, right? I think, believe it or not, cuts and abrasions, I think that fall under manual handling injuries, right? I'm pretty much sure of it. But there is a list, and you could always check the list when you get to that part of your course then, right? Cuts and abrasions. I write it down how we have it, or how it was said. Right, good. So just take them down and just take a note somewhere that these all belong, like it have to be matched up to a proper category, right? But you will get the category list in time. It's in chapter 3 or element 3 of the course. For now, these are all hazards because they all have the potential to cause harm. So nothing isn't wrong with these, right? Hot work, slips and trips, noise, electric shock, ELECTRICITY, electricity, mechanical, workplace welfare, fire, cuts and abrasions, right? Tell me when you finish, if you want to get a share some light here on something on your project, but I wouldn't say too much, but I'll share some light on something on your project. And then I'll come down to risk, right? Tell me when you finish, I'll just, because there's a need, remember there's a need to always still link it back to your assessment because you cannot pass by just sitting on, you know, in the live there. There's something to do. So if it's something relevant, we should link it to what that is anyway. Right? Are you all finished writing down what's on the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So just take a note, those of us with our notebooks and things. So we mentioned last week there's a project to do, right? It's called a risk assessment. And you see risk down here and you see risk there. So this is kind of linked to that, right? Now, on that risk assessment project, right, what you have to do, you have to come up with 10 hazards, right, from a list that they will give you. Let me try to explain that a bit. I won't say too much about it. I'm just trying to tell you, like, just to kind of link it now, right? So we come up with 10 hazards. But the thing is, they give you a list of like about 40 hazards. So you have to be picking from that 40, right? it's like a checklist then. It's like on the checklist have noise, vibration, slips and trips, and then you are just thinking about like what on that list is at my company or my made-up company. And you should be choosing your 10 from the list. So it's like an easy thing. We tend to call it the hazard pool. If you hear me talk about the hazard pool, when we come to elementary, the hazard pool is the list of hazards. I have it right on my desk here, you know, right? So the thing though with the risk assessment project, your hazards must come from that list, that it must come from that pool. If your hazard on your assessment is not from the list, you could fail your assessment. It must come from it. Must means must, right? So I know locally in the Caribbean, we don't understand words like that. Like when it's like when they tell somebody must, like we don't understand that. But the British understand it. Like if they say it must come from there, it must come from there. Right? Let me see if I can reach it. I have 100 different things on my desk, but if not, we'll talk about it more when we get into that part of the course then, right? I'm just making a quick scheme. It's on my desk, but I have I'll turn the camera on a bit and I'll show you what is a good. There's a pile of paper here. Right? It normally is more to the top though, right? But hopefully you understand what I'm trying to do, that your hazards for your project is not as if you have to go anywhere. Like you don't have to really go, you know, too much to a company. Then you could actually just look at the list and then think about if you have worked at a company before, like what hazards there is common to my workplace then, right? I'm not coming up with it, right? I'm not coming up with it, right? I'll show you when we get time or when we reach to that part of it. I'm just trying to link it and see if I had a physical, but it's there, but it's defined, right? Amongst the stacks of paper that is there, right? If you could make that out, right? So, but it's easy then because you have, I just if I put it anyways, but you have a pool to choose from, right? So it's not as if you'll be wondering, okay, like, can I choose fire? You just have to watch the list. And if fire is on the list, yes, you could choose fire. Can I choose chemical? You just watch the list. So for your test, it's easier than you think. As I tell you, NIBOSH is easier than you think. They didn't even let you go on your own. They give you a pool to choose from, right? So that's why it's easy. It's like you could just look at the list and say, okay, so you see slips and trips on the list, right? So you just check it. So in my company, if I'm using a restaurant, I'm using, you know, an industrial company, right? Do I have slips and trips hazard? And if the answer is yes, you just type it out on your sheet, slips and trips. It's that easy. NIBOSH is easier than you think, right? All right, let me kind of take that off. I didn't find the list, but like I said, today's your first day. We kind of stretching a bit. I do have it on a shared document, you know, but it's not the project time today. I was just trying to say that as we're looking at hazards, to bear in mind, to pass this course, you have to do a project, a risk assessment, and on it, you have to get 10 hazards and write them up. But you don't have to really imagine the hazards. They normally give you like a list. Well, not normally, you have a list and you choose your 10 from that. So it's not to say you'll be left thinking, what hazard do I put? Where do I get them from? They give you a list, a pool, and you simply choose your 10, any 10 from that pool. Easier than you think, right? All right, I'm taking that off. Let's see if we can get to the next one, right? So what is risk, right? They say risk here is the product of the likelihood and consequences of a substance, activity, or process to cause harm. Risk is the product of the likelihood and consequences of a substance, activity, or process to cause harm. What's something up here, right? What's something? Of a substance, person, activity, or process to cause harm. Watch this here. You see the link? Of a substance, well, person, activity, or process to cause harm. So the concept here is this, right? Listen a bit to this one, right? Listen a bit to this one. So is there a difference between hazards and risk? Because like
Yes.
in the workplace, yeah, there's a difference. You'll see it here in a bit, right? But in the workplace, then some persons may see somebody at a height and they would say, well, that's a risk, right? Or they may see oil in the ground and they will say that's a risk. And then somebody say, well, no, that's the hazard. So which is it? Well, I'll tell you which is it now, right? So I'm going straight into it. I'm not doing any more detailed explanation. I'm going straight into this. So what they say is this, right? Hazard is like the name of what will have the potential to cause harm, right? So hazard is that name. Let's go back to the example I was using. But if you want to write this down, you could. I'll go back to the example of the scaffold, right? Somebody on a scaffold. I put in some guardrails now to the top here. But I'm going to put the man out here again, right? So somehow he's out here on the plank, right? So, we know it's going to draw some clouds here, but the clouds are a little bit too low, right? Let's say this is about 10 feet high or more than 10 feet high, right? We're going to put a hard hat on him, but I'm not going to put any harness on him. I'm just going to leave him there, right? And in his hand, he has a sheet of roofing materials or something, right? The idea of the clause was to signify that it's a bit of a windy day, right? So we know the hazard is what we said before. The hazard is things like fall from height. You could write this one over, right? So the hazard is fall from height, right? Well, then what's the risk? What I was trying to show in the definition, why I underline or why I circle those two things is because you realize here, risk then is like calculated on the hazard from here. When this thing starts here of a substance activity, this is the hazard, watch it here. A hazard is the potential of a substance. In other words, and risk is the product on the hazard. Risk is so product is like the word product means to multiply in maths, right? So risk is like a calculation like you do on the hazard actually happening, right? Think you understand that? Hazard is like a description then. Yeah, go ahead.
Our next description could be that how a risk is a scalable number between 1 to 25.
Very good. Yeah. So you said it perfect there. Risk is like a number, whereas hazard is like a word. If you want to think of it in terms of that basics, watch it there. Hazard is a descriptive word. Fall from heights, slips and trips, chemical, pinch point, fire. But risk is not the word. Risk is a number, right? So you said it perfectly. So what they do, and for those of us who don't know, I'll just go a little bit slow here. What they do, they use numbers 1 to 5 to represent how likely it is, like the person would fall from height. And then whatever number you give, right? They also use a number scale of 1 to 5 of how bad the consequences will be. 1 being not bad and 5 being things like death. On this side, 1 will mean like the person would not fall, but 5 will mean the person will fall, right? The numbers you end up with here and the number you end up with here, they multiply it together. We'll do it just now, right? And the number you get, they judge it out of 25. Now, why 25? Because anybody can say why 25? Why is it out of 25?
Because the maximum
highest, sorry, is by the highest risk, which is the highest likelihood by 5 and the highest consequence by 5 by 5, 25. Once it is 25, the real rate.
Yeah, very good, Charles, as well, right? So yeah, so the highest this will be is not 100. Now, this is the worldwide formula we're talking about. Worldwide says it all. There's no need to say, every country is the same formula, right? So it's not 100, it's out of 25, right? So on a number line, if you think of a number line, right, with 1 on this side and 25 on this side, the closer we get to 25, then the higher the risk will be. This will be like high risk, right? And the lower the number will be, it will be like low risk. And this is one of your jobs of a safety advisor. You as a safety would look at this person up here, let's call him Frank, right? And you have to assess how likely he would fall on a scale of 1 to 5. And if that says if he falls 10 feet high, he doesn't have a scaffold, so he doesn't have a harness, right? How bad the injury will be. And we took like we spoke about acceptance in one of the first slide. You have to say, would your company accept? But companies don't accept high risk, right? So if the risk is high, the onus is on you as the safety to stop this job and to put controls in place to reduce the risk to the lower numbers then. So could you tell me, just like have a mic passing on the road. For those of us who may not understand that, it's like a music car passing on the road. You turn it out now, we'll say like a mic passing, but not everybody in the world would understand that. So you all don't hear it because I think Zoom have a filter, so you all don't hear it, but we hear it now, right? Zoom have a filter for the background noise. All right, okay, I think it passed, right? That sounds like a funeral, but that didn't really sound good music. Okay, it sounds like a funeral, to be honest, right? Yeah. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 5, tell me how likely you think this man will fall. 1 meaning he would not fall. 2 would be things like maybe. 3 likely. 4 probable. 5 means he will fall. Take your time and answer because there are people that work like this and not fall. I could think of Jeffrey. Some of those SIS projects, right? How likely you think the man will fall on a scale of 1 to 5?
I think I'll put it as a 3.
3? Anybody else?
So, 4.
I'll say
4.
4.
Anybody else? What about the
4.
rest of us? Anand, Devanand?
I'll say 4.
4. Amrika, Colleen, Craig, Tamika, Shanella. I think Shanella is in Guyana as well, right? Celine Duncan, Guyana as well, right? What do you all say, Celine? And maybe Shanella?
Probably a 4.
Probably a 4. Thanks very much for the answer. Anybody want to chime in again? So I will go with 4 because I think it's, well, one of the reasons why the guys in immense safety here would understand. The more people that say the number is the more that you put it, right? That's how you do a risk assessment. A risk assessment is not a one-person approach. It's like a team. So if the majority of you say 4, that it's end up being 4, right? Let's talk about the consequences now. If the person falls 10 feet high, he doesn't have on a harness, what would happen to him? I think this may be, I think we'll all agree with this one.
5.
5. Okay, good, right? So 4 by 5 will give us what?
20.
Right,
20.
calculators are allowed for the exam, but it's a simple kind of maths. 20 out of 25 will be the risk ranking. Now, how high is this? Well, 20 is close to 25, and this is actually classed as high risk as well. So we will have to stop this job. Yes, you will have to stop this job as a safety. And you will have to get the person down, and you're not going to spoil his fun, of course. You're not going to spoil the company's work, of course, but you want to get him down. You probably want to get him to stay within the guardrails. Those of us, maybe put up the guardrails, number 1. Those of us who know about that. Put up the guardrails, put him inside here, put a harness on him. Probably figure out why is he holding this sheet of roofing material on his hand. If there's another way to get it up there, maybe we could get it up there with a lift or something. And make sure the work is safe now, right? Give him maybe some training, tell him he needs to stay within the guardrails, etc., etc. And with that done, the risk will go down to the lower numbers. It wouldn't be 1. It may come down to maybe 15 or 12, but it would be out of what we call the red. Red is when you're closer to 25. Once you're out of the red, the risk could be seen to be acceptable.
Yeah, one thing, sir. What it is look for sometimes when it's scaffold, if the scaffold green tag, sometimes it does allow people to go up without the harness. But if our harness missing a guardrail, a board, plank, whatever it is, it's supposed to be it needs to have a tag on it, so it just have a holder. So if a person do go up, like as a safety officer, and I see that how somebody do go up on a scaffold, the first thing I look to see if it green tag.
Check the inspection.
An inspection.
Yeah, what else at your company? But remember, it have company out here, Charles, like contracting companies that they will actually send up somebody on a scaffold, just the H-frame with one plank alone in it, right? So companies in Guyana too, right? So I mean, I didn't talk about the green tag and whatever, but I sort of assume that this is just how it is. But yes, of course, in the better companies, those things don't happen. But I kind of created the example there that just to give you the idea that somebody could fall from height. If we get back to the learning, so the learning here was that hazard is a word, watch it, but risk is what? Risk is a number. You all saw that? Hazard is a word, risk is a number. Hazard is a word, risk is a calculation. So it's not the same thing, right? Like, okay, if we had gotten the man inside and we had gotten the training and the scaffold inspected, check this out, right? Check this out, right? But you had to tell me if you finish this slide because I'll have to clean the bottom part of it.
Wait, so I could just go ahead and say that risk is quantifiable, basically.
It is quantifiable, yeah, by multiplying the likelihood and consequences, right? It's like a really simple example is like if you go to the market tomorrow Sunday, so you go to the market, right? But you're buying tomatoes. So what you're buying is tomatoes, right? But then when you go to pay for it, they will say how much pounds it is. So the pounds then, like how much pounds it is, will come like 5 pounds then. So what you're buying is tomatoes, but you're paying 5 pounds. So hazards and risk is like that. Hazard is the word, risk is the number. It's the same thing, you know. It's the risk associated with the hazard. Like the 5 pounds would be associated with the tomatoes. It's like you wouldn't go up to the market vendor and say you just want 5 pounds. You say 5 pounds of what, right? Or 3 pounds of what? So in a way, then one is quantifiable on the other one. 5 pounds tomatoes or ground provisions, 20 associated with the hazard here, fall from height. But what I wanted to show you here is this, right? We were saying just now, what's something, right? What's something? I'll leave in this, right? If we had gotten the person, you know, inside the scaffold with the guardrails fully erected, toe boards and everything, intermediate and, you know, final guardrail for those who know all of those things. If you don't know it, you don't have to. Just know that the scaffold is well inspected, right? If we had gotten him there, we got the harness on him and said, what I try to show you, what's something, right? What would be the hazard if the person was inside the scaffold and fully, you know, with the harness and stuff, right? What would be the hazard? Make a guess. What would be the hazard? The person is inside here now, right? We put a, well, I should have drawn him taller than that. Okay, but you get the point, right? Because we had the harness and thing, right? He should be a bit taller. But what would be the hazard? No, he's still working 10 feet high. So what would be the hazard?
Falling from heights.
Yes, the hazard would still be fall from heights. What would be the risk now? The risk now may be lower. The likelihood of fall may be 2, and the consequences may be also be 2 or 3, right? Because we put a harness on him. So if he fall, his fall would be arrested then, right? What I'm trying to show you is this, is that the hazard remains the same. What will change is the risk associated with it. Think you understand that? Okay, it's like you trying to cross the road, right? The first time you try to cross, so the hazard is being hit by a car then, right? So the hazard is being hit by a car. So the first time you try to cross is a busy intersection. You can't cross, right? Or maybe you see cars coming and you decide, okay, you're going to take a chance, right? So it's high risk. But the other time you decide to cross the road again, right, across the intersection, we say the proper way, the hazard is still being hit by a car. A car could come out, you know, as we say, from nowhere. But if you see less traffic there, the risk will be lower, but the hazard is the same. Think you understand that, folks? So the name then, noise, the name slip and trip, the name fire remains the same, right? But if, you know, like, you know, you have someone smoking next to a barrel of diesel, the risk will increase then. If you move the diesel and you move out the smoking, then the person smoking in the designated area, the hazard is still is fire, just that the risk will go down. And this is what we mean by certain risk could be seen to be acceptable. The lower risk is acceptable. Is it perfect? No. Is it safe? Kind of way. It's safer than how it was. Could something still happen? Yes. An earthquake could pass by, God forbid, and this whole thing could come crashing down. But we would have done our best. The safety would have put up the guardrail, inspect the scaffold, give the man a SSOW, a safe system of work, a safe way of doing the task, put a harness on him, supervisor. We did our best. Life is not perfect. I was trying to say the number will never go down to 0. It will never be 0 out of 25. Right? It would never be 0 out of 25. But it will be 6 out of 25. It may even be 1 out of 25. But it will never be 0 out of 25. Right? Tell me if you think you understand that a bit. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I think we could stop here for today. Now, I didn't get to do moral, but I'm looking at the time. And by the time we mark the rule and stuff and see if you have any questions, I think that will, sort of end it. Now, the reason for the detailed explanation on this one was that this was a past paper question. So if I could take 2 minutes, I'll just share it with you. Right? It is a very easy question. They asked you to calculate the risk, but they said use numbers 1 to 3. Right? So like for both sides, likelihood and severity, they said use numbers 1 to 3. The question came twice, right? I'm just talking about it, just to tell you it was an easy question, right? Use numbers 1 to 3 on both sides. And what they asked you to do is to calculate the risk of a machine with a guard on. Well, actually it was off first, right? They, like a bench mounted circular saw or an abrasive wheel, if you know what that is. The guard is the protective covering like around the machine then, right? So you normally have like a guard. If you want to have a portable one, have like a guard covering the metal part of it there, right? So the ask to calculate the risk with the guard off and with the guard on. Folks, that couldn't be more easier. You could just do that mentally. If the guard was removed and then if it was put back on, right? So you could do that mentally for me now. Like with the guard off, meaning that you just had the wheel and you just had the abrasive wheel. What do you think would have been the likelihood out of 1 to 3? It probably would be what?
2.
It probably could be 2, but it could also be 3. And what could be the severity? It could also be
3.
3. So then for this one, it'll end up being 3 by 3, 9. Right? And that'll be 9 out of 9, which is high risk because you see, if you use numbers 1 to 3, the highest it'll be is 9 then, right? And with it on, with you put on the guard, the risk would have been 1 by 1, which is 1 out of 9, which is low risk. So one of them is 9 out of 9, and the other one is 1 out of 9. The question came twice before, right? Like in the history of the open book exams now, right? It wasn't harder than that, right? It was not harder than that, right? Folks, I'll stop there. Yeah, go ahead.
You said something earlier, which was they generally take like, if everybody decides that the risk is 4 out of 5, right? And that's the general answer that everybody gives.
That's
Does
in the
that
companies,
mean-
yeah?
Huh?
Not for exam, huh?
Okay. Okay. Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking about something else. Then. All right.
No, okay, but Jabari, right? For exam 2, like you could actually get 6 out of 9, I guess 3 by 2, 6, and still get it correct, you know. What you check for exam is like you end up in the correct range then. Like if you get high risk, so high risk on a scale of 1 to 9, a scale of 1 to 9 then, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I want to get anything like maybe 3 by 3, 9, right? So 2 by 2, 4, 2, 3, 6. I guess if you get anything like 6, it will still be correct. Like for NIBOSH, it's not really maths we're doing now. It's more, okay, it's not maths we're doing, right? So they're not really looking for 9 out of 9. It's like they're looking for the range. So if you end up in the high range and you say, okay, the risk is high, well, fine, you get it correct. And then if with the guard on, if you end up in the low range, like if you put 1, somebody could have gotten 1 by 2 if you said 2 here or maybe 1 here or vice versa. Once you end up in the low range, you're going to get it correct. It's not that kind of maths where you have to get 9 out of 9 or 1 out of 9. It's not that kind of maths because it's not maths we're doing, it's safety, and it's more about the ranges for exam anyway. Right? So rest assured of that. He could have gotten 6 out of 9 and still get it correct. He could have gotten 2 out of 9 and still got it correct. 1 out of 9 and still got it correct because you're in the correct range, right? Likewise, those of us in safety, what I was saying, in a real risk assessment, if you was working this out in the company, they don't allow one person to do a risk assessment because one person could be subjective. So if you want 4 workers doing it and you ask Frank, what do you think it is? And you say 3, and the next worker said 2, exactly what I did here. And then John said 3 as well. And then Henry said 3. They will just go with the majority because the more people that say the number, the less subjective you tend to be. Right? Okay, I kind of out of breath, but let me try to call the rule, right? Tyrese. After Tyrese is Jason.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I can make out some of your names.
Present, sir.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Amrika.
Here.
Thanks, Amrika. Celine is here. Well, Charles, again, thanks for taking such good part today, folks. All who took part, Jabari, Eden, Charles, Henry, right? Jabari, I put you present, right? Deodat.
Present, sir.
Thanks very much.
All right, sir.
Jillan. Yes, okay. All the best, folks. Jillan Lewis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. Colleen Craig. After Colleen is Justin.
Present.
Thanks, Colleen. Justin. After Justin, we have Adnan. Anand, sorry, Arjuse.
Present.
Thanks, Anand. Devanan, Maraj.
Yeah.
Kalia Joseph.
Present, sir.
Thanks, Kalia. Jalen Agad.
Present.
Thanks, Jalen. Sarah Ali Bokas. Shanella. Well, I know Shanella was here because I saw you. Tamika Salandi.
Present, sir.
Thanks, Tamika. Amrish is also here. Thanks for taking part today, Amrish.
Yes, sir.
Matthias. All right, going again. Edon is here. Gabriel Victor. Tamaya.
Here.
Okay, once you say present, you can leave, right? Devanana, call your name already. Okay, thanks, Tamaya. Tristan Kisoon. Tamaya, put your present already, right? Okay, good. All right. Is anybody on the live didn't hear your name?
Yes, sir.
Shivan, I think remember you're the other February class.
Gabriel Victor, present, sir.
Yes, okay, Gabriel, I'll put you. Yeah, Gabriel, now you dress up so well.
Hey, at work.
Oh, you're on work. Okay, good. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Shivan Ramrup, remember you're in the February class, right? As far as I know. So you're joining from next week for 1 o'clock now.
All right.
Okay, good. All right. All the best, everyone. Let me stop the recording there. Stop share. Okay.